Welcome back to Curiosity, Not Judgment. My name is Birga,
And I'm Gary.
and wanted to talk about some of the practicals around collaboration today. It is one of those words that I use incessantly. It is something that is a desperate longing of my heart, but I'm realizing through some situations that have unfolded over the last couple of weeks that there really has to be a process in place to collaborate, or at least to collaborate well. And so I wanted to jump into the fray and talk about that today.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because sometimes collaboration just happens, right?
I don't know. I don't know if you could fall into it naturally, perhaps. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But when you think about a project, maybe you've got a major landscaping project and you've got different people coming to help on this. They're volunteering their time to come help on this project. You can say, all right, this is what we ultimately want done. We want this patch of grass, this rock landscaping over here, and all of these bushes planted. And you can maybe have a generic vision for what the end is supposed to look like. But there has to be, in my experience, more instruction, more strategy, more guidance, and for folks to really talk about their strengths in order to get it done. Because maybe you've got somebody who's got a bad back and they can't dig a hole for that bush to be planted, and you've got somebody else who, can't hold the shovel and, move the gravel, whatever. I'm kind of faltering in my words here. But the point being is there has to be an involvement of all of the people that are going to be part of the project to speak up into, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, this is where I'm really competent or I have skills. I think those conversations are necessary for a true collaboration to happen.
Interesting. And then there's different kinds of collaboration. Obviously, there's a team collaboration. There's a one-on-one collaboration. I suppose you can even collaborate with your computer or inanimate object somehow, if that were to take it to the extreme. But anyway, talking about people, because that's the most interesting one. How do we be curious about collaboration? Is there a process by which we follow? And again, when we talk about processes on this podcast, we're not trying to hem someone into something and be legalistic and say, well, you must do this. But sometimes it's helpful to have a process or a framework that helps us kind of think ahead of time about not falling into quicksand, right? About how to be effective with people in a collaboration.
I can think of so many different areas, everything from really intense projects at work to family issues. You're planning a family vacation with several different family members, and the ultimate goal is to get to Disney World, but somebody's going to book airfare, somebody's going to book hotel, somebody's going to plan on meals. If you don't have the conversation around who's going to do what and how, then things get missed, items fall through the cracks, and then you've got some problems on your hands. And so, again, I don't want to beat this to death, but I do think it's important for us to talk a little bit about what does that process look like if you truly want to collaborate rather than just say it in namesake. Like, yeah, I want to work with you together to get this thing done, but really my intention is for you to just do it and I'm going to support you in a cheerleader role.
Yeah.
That's not collaboration.
No.
That's just, kind of working side by side, or me being a one-off, just cheering you on. And so to actually integrate your work together, or integrate your skills and your processes together to get to an end goal, I really think there has to be a strategy.
That's good. So I'm thinking about a couple of different examples that are going on in my life right now. But a basic start, though, is, Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, talked about whenever you got a team of people with different skill sets, it's getting the right people on the bus and then getting them in the right seat in the bus. And how often do we tell someone to go dig a bush who has a bad back, metaphorically? We do that all the time in work. And so it's really important that people do speak up and say, what's the curious approach to this is, hey, who's got these skills? Here's generally what we want to get done. Who wants to go do this? Who wants to go do this? You talked about Disney World. I just did that with my family, and we already have a really good process for that, and that involves my credit card and my youngest daughter who loves planning this kind of stuff.
Okay, but good example. Is that collaboration?
To me, it is because she doesn't have the money, and I don't have the patience to go through all the details of all the stuff and what's a Genie Plus and a pass and this pass and fast pass and some of it doesn't work on certain rides. I mean, she planned it perfectly so that 12 of us were able to move through a theme park all together all day and had a great time at the end of the day. To me, I see what you're saying now. Is that a true collaboration? But it is a matching of skill sets towards an end goal.
Hey, how do you feel about collaborating with my family for a Disney World trip?
Right. Those are good. But I do have this other thing that I'm doing right now that with two entities, one that wants to move really fast and thinks they have all the answers, and the other one that's just been doing something for 100 years and doesn't really want to change. And I came up with these 4 Ps in this situation just to kind of figure out how we could collaborate. Because my goal is to be, in this case, their trusted advisor in the energy transition.
Okay.
But these are people who, it's a utility, have been doing things the same way for literally 100 years. And so how do we do that? And so I started thinking about, and you know how I love to alliterate, pain, pace, process, and policy. And so starting with the pain, if you want to collaborate with somebody, you want to identify that you've got the same definition of what the pain, what's the problem you're trying to solve.
Indeed.
And if you don't have that right, well, then you're going to be working at cross purposes by definition. No one's evil in this situation. It's just you're working for different goals. So let's say you have an alignment of the goals. One of the things that's really striking me recently is pace. Some people like to methodically go through the pace of planning and making sure I'm doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's get it done. I've decided to do it. I want it done now. Right? Now, both are very useful. One is usually the person who's the vision and the rubber band pulling everybody. The other one is the one saying, hey, wait a minute. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? This is the visionary versus the guardian in the 5 voices. But for that collaboration to work and not be infinitely frustrating for all parties, there has to be a matching of pace. So this is why I chose that for the second one is, what is the pace at which you expect to get this done? You know, utilities think in 5, 10, 20-year pace increments. I think in minute, hour, day, right? And so if there's not a matching of pace, we will never get along.
Right.
I have to buy into the fact that this is not going to happen tomorrow. They have to buy into the fact that there may be a way to do this faster than usual. And if I do believe that the energy transition needs to happen a little faster than we've been accomplishing it, well, then maybe I better move. The main thing is though, I find that matching pace from the one who wants to do things more quickly is just making sure I understand what their pace is and be there with the right thing at the right time per that pace, which is infinitely satisfying for them, I found out. So sometimes they like to dream and say, well, how are you going to scale and how are you going to do this? And I'm sitting there thinking, man, no matter what pace you want to go at, we'll be able to match it. So don't worry about that. What is it you want for that? Let's define your milestones and the different things you want along the way. I'll be there for them because it's not hard to match it.
So that may be a good example in this case that you're working on, but I think there's going to be a whole lot of times where there's going to have to be a compromise on both sides.
Absolutely.
So it's not that the fast person has to go slow or the slow person has to go fast. There has to be an agreement upon when you're going to meet certain milestones. And so hopefully it's a little bit of give and take for both parties.
Absolutely. Sorry if I missed saying that.
Well, no, I think it's important though, because it's not just throw your hands up and say, fine, we'll do it at your speed.
No, that's right.
There has to be that purposeful conversation around we've agreed upon our pain point, we've agreed upon the process by which we'll get there, or I guess we haven't even discussed that part yet, but we're agreeing upon objectives and maybe the markers along the way, and in order to meet those, we're going to have to go at this certain rate. And do we agree that is this goal achievable in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever, and to be in like-minded step in that part of the process?
Absolutely true, and that is that, and therein lies the strength of two people collaborating who have different paces, because the answer is generally not go as fast as possible, and it's generally not go as slow as possible.
Right.
And I'll give you another good example. My wife and I were doing pre-marriage counseling with a young couple who are now married, and one's a guardian, one's a nurturer. And we started talking about when they're going to have kids. Guess what? If it's up to a guardian and a nurturer being them true selves, you never have kids.
Right.
Because you never have enough money, and you never have it set up a perfect environment, right? And so now, if it's easier if one of the couple is this and that, but then that's going to cause a different kind of strife. But the strife there was, okay, if we're going to have kids, we both need to figure out what are those triggers that we can do, and we may have to decide to kind of jump a little bit and take a little bit of a leap. Otherwise, we'll never achieve that goal. So I thought that was an interesting one too. So it's not, matching pace isn't always matching pace with each other, it's matching pace with the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, to your point on that, you could say, well, we want to be financially stable, which may not happen for 15 years.
And what does that mean even these days?
But then maybe in 15 years, your body's not in good condition to have a baby. So yeah, you're going to have to enter into the realm of the uncomfortable.
Exactly, at some point.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the pace part. So pain, we agree on the problem. Pace, we match pace to the goal of the problem and with each other. And then the next one is processes. I have a process by which I do certain things. I'm sure you have a process by which you do things. So this isn't just a business process. This is a personal process thing. If you want to collaborate with somebody, you're going to have to match processes.
Yeah.
Some people will say, okay, I'll make a decision when I've got 90% of all the data. Other people are willing to make a decision when I've got 20% of the data and a little bit of key or a clue into the trend. Right? I'm okay to take a little. So how do we match our processes? Right? And then finally, policy. I will not do that.
This is where I draw the line.
This is where I draw the line. We will not do that. I will not move forward without this. I will not, right? And so so some people call those personal values. We could call them expectations between us, which are always good things. Now, again, the purpose of this is not, again, to be legalistic or to say that this fits into every single thing you're trying to collaborate on. If you're just trying to figure out where to go to dinner, you don't have to go through a 4 Ps process.
Sure.
However, if it's something that's important, and a lot of things are in our lives, and I know from my own personal experience, I'm often stymied when I want to get something done and I'm trying to collaborate with one or more people, and I don't understand why things aren't working. It should be easier than this, I often find myself saying. Maybe it'd be easier if I went through a little bit of a process beforehand.
Well, and I think part of the questioning, the curious questions that we have to ask ourselves are really, what hills are we willing to die on? And I know that sounds like an extreme statement, but even in the case of vacation planning, you know, if you've got if you've got multiple generations all trying to go on vacation, and you've got maybe the oldest generation saying, well, we will not be going to a theme park, and the younger generation saying, we will not be going to any, you know, curmudgeon-y, I don't know, museums and whatever.
Right.
You know, like you've got this spectrum of things that the generations will and will not do. You know, how do you find a way to work through that process to find common goals, which hopefully is being together, spending quality time together, and how do you make that happen in an environment where there's some hard lines drawn in the sand? And again, you know, what hill are you willing to die on? And if it's the eldest generation saying, I'm not going to go to a theme park, but that really is something that's important to 80% of the rest of the crew, well, maybe you just go and you enjoy some ice cream as everybody else goes on rides. I don't know.
Funny you mentioned ice cream. We found an ice cream museum in Singapore, and I guarantee everybody enjoyed that museum.
Except for the lactose-free people.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, nobody in that group was. But anyway, yes, you're right. But the point is, You know, and I think this brings up a really good point about curiosity, not judgment. I may have a long-standing policy in my mind, like I don't go to museums on vacations. I want to go to the beach, or I want to do this, or theme park, or whatever, like you said. But maybe there's exceptions to the rule. Ice cream museum is a good exception to a museum rule. So I think questioning our own policies, especially if we run up against a situation where you're the lone vote out, you know, well, maybe you might rethink that policy for the good of the group, right?
Absolutely.
Or the good of the collaboration.
Yeah. So if you've got people that you want to collaborate with and there's not a clear pain point yet, or there's not a clear goal in mind, how do you start wrangling those people together and asking those curious questions to get to that point where you've identified, aha, this is the place where we want to go together. We need to identify that, vocalize it, put it down, and then begin to build our processes in order to get there, match pace, do all of the things. Because sometimes it's not clear exactly how to get to that matched pain point.
I'll give you a great example of that. You know that that there was 5 of us who started a home care business a while back. We didn't start out thinking about a home care business. We met around a board game that Robert Kiyosaki did called The Rat Race, I think it's called. $200 board game.
Whoa.
So one of us had to make the investment of that first. Anyway, and then we all played the game. At the end of the game, the point of the game is to get out of the rat race. And the rat race is just depending on your W-2 income only for your whole life, instead of making some investments for the future and or owning a business or doing something that gets you to the point where you're not depending totally on your W-2. It also has lessons about assets and liabilities, and the fact that a house is not really an asset because you're spending a lot of money on it. It doesn't generate money for you unless you're doing a rental, which is a business, not just a house you live in. Anyway, all these points. It's a great game in that it teaches you as you go some of these life skills that you and I have been talking about that some folks miss growing up. But anyway, at the end of the game, we all just sat there and looked at each other and said, we need to start a business together. We had no idea what business it was going to be.
I've never heard this story.
We looked at a pavement business. We looked at a janitorial service. We looked at all kinds of different businesses. We gathered other people around us to advise us on this. My dad, John Sondager, a bunch of people are in town and to advise us. And we eventually landed on the home care business. Then
It's not that it was a burning passion for you guys to get into home care. It was the goal was we want to work together, we want to earn extra income, we want to diversify, and then through process of elimination, you ended up at the home care.
Yes. Now, a couple of us had been through a home care situation, myself included with my mother, but that was not the goal when we started out. We started out saying, let's find a business. So to your point, you can sometimes start out with a very vague goal. Now, one could argue that the pain we were trying to solve is to start a business, so that we agreed on that. We had that common ground, but what that business was and the decision-making process to get us where we were was actually fascinating at the time.
Boy, you always give me things to think about
Well,
after I leave here.
The point is the collaboration.
Yes, it is.
And asking questions. And we asked a lot of questions of each other, and it was actually a very healthy, wonderful, non-dysfunctional set of things, which was great. And we're friends to this day. We were texting this morning. We still have lunch every once in a while and see how we're doing. This business was started back in 2005, right? And it grew up into 5 different businesses, which we all sold off now. But we still get together because it was such a great experience. But we had a lot of curiosity of what's a good business to do. How many of us should be involved in the business?
Did you talk about strengths and weaknesses, like who
exactly
did what role?
Exactly did that. As a matter of fact, I wasn't going to be the one who was going to be the CEO of the pavement company because that was a total different skill set. It was going to be one of the other members. And then when we decided that that wasn't the way to go and we ended up going on home care, I was very passionate about that because of the situation with my mother, and we ended up going that way, and I ended up leading that effort from internal, but then we had, okay, now how are we going to do a partnership where one or more of the people are internal to the business and one or more are external to the business, and how does that divide up? And what happens there with sweat equity versus salary versus et cetera, and we asked a lot of curious questions, and we did a lot of really interesting things. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that you have to do there is come up with an articles of organization, which sets out the basic rules of how the thing functions. And it came up of, hey, what are we going to do if the partner gets divorced and the spouse ends up with part of the shares? Are those going to be voting shares or non-voting shares, or what do we do with that? And we all looked at each other and thought, nobody's going to get divorced. Let's not even worry about it. Well, one of our advisors, I think it was my dad, said, no, you should worry about it. Because the odds are, and we don't worry about odds here because we are not like
Best
that.
of friends.
Best of friends, and nothing's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. We put it in, and sure enough, a year and a half later. And so, and that's the kind of stuff where it pays very deeply to be curious and to not be judgmental and make judgments like, that won't happen to me.
That is pretty fascinating. So let's go over those 5 Ps again, just as we kind of wrap up with some curious questions folks may ask. Everything from collaborating around a family vacation to, going through that very detailed process of trying to form a business with others. So starting off with the first one was identifying a common pain point.
Pain, and pain in this definition just means a
goal.
Common problem. It's not. I don't want to buy a drill. I want to buy a hole. Right. It's what is the thing that I want.
All right. So then from there, what was your next P?
The pace.
The pace.
Matching pace with the goal and with each other.
Okay. And then in that, we have to develop the process.
Processes, and how do we talk about processes, and what are your processes, and what are my processes, and how do we mesh those processes together?
Okay, and was there a last P?
There was, and this one is related to processes, and that's policy. In other words, what are the things that I just won't do? Let's establish the guardrails of things that we won't do and will do or want to do or want to include in there, and that can be called expectations. Expectation doesn't start with a P.
True, true. I know that you like your alliterations, and so we'll keep it as a P. Well, I think this is a fascinating conversation, and I certainly hope this has been of value to you all. Feel free, as always, drop us a comment on the YouTube channel or wherever you hear this. Feel free to send us an email. You can get in touch with us very quickly through the website, which is curiositynotjudgment.com. And man, good things to chew on until we meet again next week.
Take care.